Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, it's that time of year again when we all get to enjoy going outside and taking care of our lawn.
So I have to ask, do you like yard work or do you hate yard work? Like, there's usually no middle ground on this.
So I like it because it means I'm not in front of the laptop. So not being in front of the computer's cool. I don't mind like cutting my grass, but then when you have to go weed your flower beds or your garden all the time, that gets to be a bit much for me. How about you?
So I found that as I've gotten older, and I know that's so cliche.
Yeah.
But I found as I've gotten older that I really enjoy doing yard work much, much more. And it means more to me now. Like, you know, when my wife and I had our first house, like I literally didn't even own a weed whacker. The yard was a lawnmower. I just had a weed whacker and I would just
no way.
I would just mutilate the front yard with the
goodness.
weed whacker because I didn't care. Now it's just like my lawnmower's 3 years old and I'm considering buying a new one already. And,
really?
You know, and I'm starting to buy specific, you know, tools just for my lawn. And, you know, so I've definitely taken it up, you know, a level as I've gotten older. So you can look forward to that, James, because I know you're my junior.
Well, I am, yes. We were just walking around the neighborhood not long ago, and I was walking past one of the neighbors' yards, and I was like, ooh, that's nice grass. Look at their yard. And my wife was like, oh, my God, like, you're so old. That's like an old person thing to say.
Yeah.
Fun fact for you, Luke.
Shoot.
Curb appeal and backyard oasis are considered must-haves for 79% of Americans when buying or renting a home. This is the second most important consideration, right behind a newly updated kitchen.
Really?
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, curb appeals, it is a big thing. Like the first house my wife and I bought, we bought it and it had great curb appeal. Like I remember seeing pictures of it like online, and then I totally destroyed the yard over the course of like 4 or 5 years. And they had all these great plants, and I removed them, and I did all this stuff to make it simpler to take care of. And then when you look at a picture of what the house looked like when I bought it versus when I sold it, I actually made it worse for curb appeal. So.
Oh no.
Okay, so let's jump in a little lawn care 101. I'd like to go through the seasons with you, James, and what you should do.
Oh, I want to hear it.
Each season at kind of a high level, and then we can dig into some individual things as we need to.
Okay, let's hear it.
So right now, spring has sprung for us here in western Pennsylvania, and in the spring, it's very, very important that you clean up your yard. You know, make sure you're raking, make sure you're picking up all the acorns, leaves, all of that old stuff that kind of gathers in the corners. You want to make sure that you weed if possible. During the springtime, you're going to mow your grass at a high level, so as high as your mower can usually go. Most people hate that, but I kind of like a higher lawn. It tends to
you
be
don't mind
softer.
doing it over and over and over again?
You do have to cut it. You have to cut it more frequently. So you're cutting like 2-3 times a week in that case. But you should be mowing high. You definitely want to fertilize, and we'll get into fertilizer specifically a little bit later. But this is also a great time to patch the lawn and also overseed, or what they call thickening your lawn. That's where you're actually just kind of throwing grass seed or
do
using
you
a
do
machine.
that?
I don't do it every year, but I have done that a few times since we've been in the new house the last 5 years. So, okay, so that's spring. Really quick, summer.
Very good.
In the summer, you're going to mow high still. Grubs tend to destroy yards, specifically in the summer, so you want to make sure that you get some kind of good grub killer. You also got to watch out for the moles in the summer, too. Just drive them into the neighbor's yard, so if you put up a barrier, one of those ground bears, they'll just go into the neighbor's yard and kill their yard. Make sure that you water sufficiently in the summertime, and you want to make sure you are routinely feeding. So, fun fact about the moles: I actually drove the moles out of my yard into my neighbor's yard. When we first moved in, it's like 4 years ago, I had a mole problem, and I bought these little things that they don't kill them. They just redirect them, and they went
like,
into the neighbor's yard.
What were the little things? What was that all about?
It was like I don't know if it was like a deterrent. It was this little stake that you just put in, and you basically build like you're putting like a little fort that you stick in the ground, and when the moles get near it, they turn around and go the other way. I don't remember. I don't remember exactly what the name of it was, but they basically destroyed my neighbor's yard the next 2 years.
That's good, and so. They're not your neighbor anymore, so
no,
even better.
Fall, you want to fertilize, you want to seed, you want to mulch your leaves, people. Don't rake them. Mulch them, you jerks. We'll talk about mulching a little bit later.
Wow.
And then you want to mow shorter in the fall. You do this so that you prevent any what's called snow mold. And your very last cut of the fall, before you're going to do any more, should be almost a scalping of the grass. That way you prevent snow mold. And then finally in the winter, just stay off of it. Don't walk on it. Don't let your dogs on it. If they're like a big dog, like my dog, if it's a little teeny tiny dog like James has, that's kind of not really a dog, you can let those little dogs run on it as much as you want. But you don't want heavy weight on the grass in the winter because, especially if you're somewhere where it gets really cold and it freezes, it can mess up the grass. So high level, that's how you take care of your yard.
I feel like I'm an expert already. One of the things about dogs, Luke, that I saw is that they really advise, especially if you have a big dog like you versus tiny little doggo like me, is to spot train your dog. Because if you can get them to go pee in the same corner on a bush or something all the time, way better than for your grass than if they're going all over the place, which will kill it.
I open my front door and I point, and she runs across the street and she goes in the woods and comes back. I don't clean up dog turds, and she doesn't pee in the yard.
You have a pretty good doggo though, so
yeah,
that's
she listens
true.
pretty well.
One of the cool things that I saw and that I'm very appreciative of for living in Pennsylvania is that if you're like in the northern states, doing the basics really means having them done by like the May, June time frame because things are so cold and wet around here. So removing any leaves that might have shown up between like your cleanup in the fall and the end, removing debris, seeding new grass, and fertilizing, you have maybe up until June sometime to get all of that done in the northern states. If you're further south, and I mean, I guess it's the same around the world. If you're further south, you're kind of screwed. Like you need to get it done early.
You got to work really fast because that spring time frame that you get to get things prepped for the summer. Because if you don't prep for the summer in spring, you're gonna have dead grass all summer.
Yeah. Another thing that I saw that was kind of interesting that I never was aware of is that, and this isn't a big deal for us, it's watering your lawn. In Pennsylvania, any of you who have been here, it rains all the time. I mean, constantly. Now, you'll get to the summer where maybe you don't have that much rain and your grass will go dormant on you or, fry up a little bit. But when you water, you want to water deeply but infrequently, which I always thought you just water all the time and your grass is happy because it's getting water every day, kind of like if it was getting a sprinkle every day. But really, you want to water deeply and infrequently because that then leads to a healthier sod, like healthier grass. So the roots are growing deeper, they're working harder so that they can keep water, and therefore they're able to it's able to stay healthier as it's growing deeper, kind of like a garden plant. You don't want to water them all the time when they're young. You want to water them more infrequently so that they grow deeper roots, so that they're sturdier and that they can reach deeper water for those dry seasons.
You were like a legitimate farmer there for a while at the old place, weren't you?
Yeah. We had quite the big garden going. I learned a lot about gardening. It's something that I think I could get into on like a small scale, like farming thing if I ever had a lot of money, after we retire from the podcast from making all this cash.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I think it would be great.
Okay.
So what did you have next? Where did you want to head to?
Do you want to talk about aeration, James?
Oh, man, do I ever. First, before we do that, I did have one more fun fact for you. If you water your yard, unlike me, because it rains constantly, or snows, either way, the best time to water your lawn is early in the morning because the sun will help dry the grass. Nighttime watering can result in prolonged moisture on your grass, which is no good because that opens up the door for disease. And the same thing happens with your plants in your garden. You keep them wet like that overnight and they don't dry up, they start getting mold and disease growing on them. So you don't want that.
I know it's not eco-friendly, but I only water my lawn with bottled water. It's really difficult. It's really expensive. And then I throw the bottles over the hill where my dog uses the bathroom. But other than that...
That's where you throw your batteries as well, right?
Oh, yeah. I put my batteries over the hill, water bottles from watering my... I joke, everybody.
I love that. Okay, before we move on to your very advanced techniques, let's take a break for a word from our sponsor.
Have to assume it's Scott's.
Sure. You know, Turf Builder all the way. No, we do not have a shout-out sponsor, but we do have 2 shout-outs. Number 1, Grant B. He kept it short and sweet for us. He said, quote, "Recently discovered your podcast. Really like them and have been catching up while working from home. Keep up the work, mates." Which I like when people say mates. I think that's pretty cool. The next one would be Jim Y. So Jim Y would like a discussion on how the lasers on the back of wristwatches measure heart rate or VO2 levels. So if any of you caught our episode on the Summer Olympics, Luke actually gave us a little breakdown of VO2 levels and just how healthy he is compared to me. Full disclosure, when Jim mentioned that he wanted the lasers on the back of a wristwatch, I thought he was requesting like an episode on watches that shoot lasers, like James Bond, and I thought that was really cool. So I'm going to look to see if that's also a thing and add that to our list. So those are our shout-outs. If you want to shout out like Jim and Grant just got, or if you just want to say hi, you want some amazing stickers, whatever the case may be, email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you like, make sure that you review, yell at your Alexa device to play Unprofessional Engineering Podcast. It'll go right into your ear holes automatically. And we would love for you to do all of those things.
Nice. All right, so where did you want to move on to next again?
Why don't you talk about aeration, and I'll just add a little bit of my commentary to it if you got
aeration. So first off, I'm going to do a mini Luke's rant right now.
Ooh.
Aeration really upsets me. If you're a golfer, you'll go to the golf course and find all these little nubs everywhere, and they get in the way of your ball rolling, and they're all over the place. And then they'll aerate the greens, and then they'll have all those little holes everywhere, and it's like playing Plinko as you're putting the golf ball, and that really annoys me.
They're called cores.
They're called cores.
Just saying.
So there's 2 different kinds of aeration that I'm going to talk about, at least. There's spike aerators that you can use, and this is a tool that's made up of like a giant metal fork with these like spokes on it. So the fork pokes holes into the ground, and then it pulls out the plugs. Then there's a plug and core aerator, and this tool has hollow tines on it, and it's used to remove the plugs from the soil and grass from the lawn. So using the core aerator equipped with these hollow tines, you basically mechanically dig the roots of the grass and pull plugs out of the earth, which then are dropped on the ground and then annoy me. The plugs are usually about 1 inch to 1.5 inches deep, and they're spaced about 4 inches apart. So there's tons of plugs, Luke, everywhere, and it drives me nuts.
Now, the reason you aerate is really important, and the reason you aerate is because the soil compacts over time. You have all this gravity, and you have people walking, and rain, and just all the things happening with your lawn. So the soil gets so compact. So there's a test that you can do to know if your lawn needs aerated. If you take a long screwdriver and you can't push it in, so I think they said like a 6 or 8 inch screwdriver. If you can't easily push a screwdriver into the ground without like really forcing it in, that means your soil is too compact and you need to aerate it. And the reason you want to do that is so that nutrients and water and airflow can all happen with your soil.
Yeah, so I was reading about if you should do this. Like you said, you have the screwdriver test. Places that commonly will do this would be like new construction. So the grass is newly constructed, and that means it's likely very compacted because you just had this heavy equipment rolling over everything, right? And then they probably just threw seed down, or maybe they put sod down, but it's probably really smashed up. High, heavy use areas where you have constant traffic, either your bratty children are out there stomping around, or maybe you have pets that are always walking around, or maybe people even are parking on your grass, things like that. That might be a place to do it. Or even if you have spongy or dry feeling areas, you may have a thatch problem, which can be helped with aeration as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Pittsburgh, this is a big thing. Aerating is huge in Pittsburgh because everything here is clay. So our ground is basically always compact. So the soil's really bad, and you need to kind of pull those plugs up. Have you done that before, Luke?
No, I haven't. So I'm actually considering doing it right in the middle of a pandemic right now, unfortunately. So renting an aerator, because these things are big. Mm-hmm. To buy one yourself doesn't really make sense. So you rent one every 2-3 years, and it's about $150 for the day. So I'm probably going to rent one. And the best
$150 for the day.
Yeah. So usually you want to like get your neighbor, be like, hey, let's go in this together, and you can do yours and mine. So you typically want to do this in the spring or fall when it's the peak of growing season for your lawn, or whenever that happens to be, wherever you live. Here, spring is great, fall is great, and you want to do that so that the lawn can recover quickly, because it's pretty invasive what it does to the lawn. Like, it's really aggressive. You're slicing through the grass and pulling out these plugs. So that's the best time. Typically every 2 to 3 years, or every year if you have a really high traffic lawn.
Every year? Ugh. No, thank you.
Yeah, I've never done it since I've been here. I'm sure that I'm due, so I think I'm going to probably do it, hopefully before summer.
I've never done it either. But I do know something that you have been actively doing, and that's dethatching your lawn.
This one's really... so I'm like one of those, like, I get this thing in my head and I can't let it go.
That's
and
true.
I know a lot of people find that hard to believe.
No.
And I also watch a lot of YouTube videos whenever this kind of thought gets in my head. So I want to start dethatching my lawn, right? So then you Google dethatcher, and you can rent these things at Home Depot or Lowe's. Same thing, about $100. And they're these really big, heavy machines. And what they do is they pull up a thatch layer. So what thatch is right below your grass. If you kind of part your grass and you look down, you shouldn't see soil. You should see some debris, some dead grass. Mm-hmm. And a healthy thatch layer is about 1/2 inch or less.
Right.
And that's a healthy amount to let in air, nutrients, and water. As soon as you go above 1/2 inch of thatch, what happens is mold grows, not enough oxygen, not enough nutrients. So thick thatch is really bad. So what a dethatcher does...
Hold on, real quick. To be clear, though, you do want some thatch in there,
some
right?
Thatch,
like,
yes.
It's like a barrier to protect your grass?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, but you want 1/2 inch or less.
Okay.
So what a dethatcher does is, a dethatcher, basically how many times you go over the lawn, you pull up more and more of this thatch. And you can rent them for about $150, but I found this thing, and they're not a sponsor, but Greenworks makes this dethatcher you can buy on Amazon for $130 Prime. It showed up at my house the next day after I ordered it, and it's this little electric dethatcher, and it pulled up a ridiculous amount of thatch out of my front and backyard. So I went over mine twice. They say to get more, you could do 3-4 times. It really tears up your lawn, though. You gotta be ready to do this and to water it and take care of it. So I dethatched my lawn, and what dethatching does is it basically gets that thatch to a level where it's going to let in the water, let in the air and the nutrients. So they say you should do dethatching, same kind of frequency as the aeration. You should do it every 2 to 3 years or as needed. And if you have a lot of thatch, you may need to do this every year in some cases, depending on the type of thatch you have and the grass that you have. So you want to do it during the peak seasons for growing, so spring and fall here in the Berg, other places. Whenever your peak growing season is, that's when you want to dethatch.
Okay. I saw just a little bit more information on that. After you dethatch your lawn, it's like the perfect time to then overseed your lawn.
Yeah.
So you're pulling up that thatch, but you're also going to pull out some of the healthy grass as well,
yes,
inevitably.
For sure.
So this is a great time for you then to go, like Luke said, toss that seed all over your yard so that it can start growing and getting more of that fresh new grass growing as well. It's also a good time to test your soil for pH levels to figure out if that's going to be healthy or not. Your lawn might need you to put down some lime to restore the pH balance after thatching to make it healthy again. I remember my dad doing that all the time. He's one of you lawn nuts, once he got old.
So fun story about dethatching. You can do this, like I said, a couple ways. You could rent the Home Depot dethatcher for $150. You can buy the Greenworks, or they sell these dethatching rakes that are.
I'm told those are super heavy.
Yeah. Or you could just use a regular old metal rake like I got from my grandfather. So I decide, you know what, I'm not going to do this. Before I bought the Greenworks one, I decided to dethatch my front yard. After about 9.5 minutes, I felt like my back and shoulders were going to fall off. And literally the next day, I was in so much pain. I yelled at my wife and daughter for talking to me because I was in so much pain from dethatching. And that's the day I bought the Greenworks one off of Amazon.
And so that the one you're mentioning, the Greenworks one, who should be a sponsor, that's like a power rake, is that right? So it's like a mower device kind of thing. It like rotates.
It's a little mower, electric, super quiet, and has these really small metal tines, and it just rotates and kicks up all that thatch, and it was amazing. I watched it. Just Google it. There's a ton of videos. Lots of these like lawn guys that go crazy and make videos of them cutting their lawn. Have tested this out, and tons of great reviews. It was awesome. Best $130 I ever spent.
Cool. The last thing I wanted to mention about this is that some lawns are more prone to thatch, like building up underneath them. Kentucky bluegrasses, Bermuda, and then like some of the creeping fescues that are out there. These are all of my like favorite golf terms, right? Those ones typically need dethatched a lot. But there's other like clump forming grasses out there, like the tall fescue and some ryegrass, different things like that, which seldom need thatching done to them. So it must be something about the makeup of these things that change it. I don't know how the Pennsylvania PSU seed, the specially formulated grass seed for Pennsylvania from the Pennsylvania State University, I don't know how it does with thatching, but, maybe it needs it. I don't know.
That's all I use is Penn State blend.
So. Is it? Ah, interesting. Yeah. Good job, Luke. All right, so I know we're a little over, but I think now is the perfect time for this week's Luke's Rant.
Okay, so my rant is going to be all about bagging versus mulching and kind of what they say you're supposed to do. Don't answer yet, James.
I won't.
I'm gonna try to make you feel guilty here at the end. So do you bag or do you mulch? That's a huge question. So you don't know what the difference is. Number one, you have to have a mulching blade on your mower. This is a blade that is a little bit different. There's usually these little curvy things at the back side of it that pull the grass up in kind of a vortex fashion, and it keeps the grass elevated so it can cut the grass more than one time. Sometimes there's different shapes and profiles to the blades that are mulching blades. You typically have the mower totally closed, so you don't have the side discharge open or the back discharge when you're mulching. And the idea is it cuts that grass just hundreds and hundreds of times before it actually throws it down on the ground. And
hundreds and hundreds?
Maybe even thousands, I don't know. Depends on how much is bouncing around there and how fast that blade is going. And then there's bagging, where you basically throw the side discharge on with the bag or the back, and you collect the clippings, and they get cut and vacuumed up. So here's the deal. Whenever you bag it, you're basically creating a huge, and this is going to go from my rant into just another session. So it's going to be a really long rant that just kind of goes into the next thing. So just be ready for that,
10-minute rant.
James.
Yeah.
So bagging causes a little bit of a problem because you end up with this waste that you just have to come to my house and throw over the hill, because that's what you do with bagged grass. You could compost it, but composting grass is not easy. It takes a really long time to break down. It stinks to high heaven whenever it's breaking
so bad.
down. It's terrible. Or you got to put it in the garbage, and then it goes into a landfill. And so bagging, there's all kinds of problems with bagging. But bagging has become the lazy man's way of taking care of their lawn. Most people, like James, they want to cut their grass once a week. Maybe every 10 days, potentially. So every week and a half. And the grass is so high that you can't mulch it. It'll just be chunks, and it'll just be a disaster if you try mulching it. So people are forced to bag whenever they are, I'll say, lazy lawn care technicians. If you cut your grass every 3 days, like I do sometimes, in the spring and fall, I'm kind of
sometimes like twice a year, maybe.
No. But mulching, you're only cutting, like maybe a quarter inch, half an inch off. and it cuts it up, puts down these microscopic particles. There's a myth that mulching creates thatch. It does not. If you mulch properly and you cut every 3 to 4 days, the mulch particles are so small that they basically dissolve and turn into like just nutrients that you're feeding your lawn with. So, do you bag or mulch, James? I'm betting you are a bagger, guaranteed.
I feel like there was some slander going on right there, which
tons of slander.
Hurts my feelings a little. I, in fact, don't think I have ever bagged my grass.
What?
Now that being said, I certainly also don't follow the rules of how much of your grass you chop off. So maybe I think it's like the top third or something is the most you're supposed to be taking off.
Yeah.
I for sure regularly chop off more than the top third, meaning I'm probably not mulching properly, nor am I avoiding thatch buildup when I do that.
Okay.
I like to think of it that fortunately I move houses every 5 years, so that's someone else's problem.
By the time you've killed the lawn, you can move on to the next one. Okay.
Yes. I'm really trying in the new house though, Luke, to make it a nice, green, healthy lawn. So I need to get back out there and mow again. That's too funny. Okay, so what's your next topic you wanted to cover?
I feel like we have to talk about fertilizer and what the numbers mean on a fertilizer bag.
I love that. That's a great thing to go to next. What do the numbers mean? So, the 3 of them, right?
There's 3 of them. So if you look on any bag of fertilizer, unless it's like a lot of the big name brands don't necessarily put the numbers on there, or if they do, they're not really obvious. It's just their proprietary blend and you just do it. But you're usually going to see 3 numbers. In order, the numbers are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And the higher the number, the more percentage it has in that particular bag. You're going to find that those numbers don't equal 100%. What they do is they equal a percentage, and then whatever leftover percentage, that's inert ingredients that are used to help distribute the granules or whatever on your lawn. So it's never going to add up to 100. So, for example, you might see a blend that says 20-4-4. So that's 20% nitrogen, 4% phosphorus, 4% potassium, and they do different things. So nitrogen is all about from the root up. And
nitrogen's what they usually consider to be the most important, right?
It's the most. It is, but it's also the one that like you're a, I'm going to put nitrogen on my grass kind of guy, and all that is, and that's and I'm throwing shade, and all that is.
You really are.
And what it is I just want my grass to be green. Because that's what nitrogen does. When you throw nitrogen down, you're going to get green grass, and it's going to grow fast, but it's not necessarily going to be healthy. So that's what nitrogen does. Phosphorus actually helps with blooms and actually goes down to help develop the root system.
It helps to store energy and helps with photosynthesis.
It does help with photosynthesis. And then potassium, this promotes overall well-being, and it also prevents from diseases forming and keeps the roots healthy and keeps the grass healthy. So a perfect example, let's say you have a new lawn or new-ish lawn. You want to have a balance of nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus because you need to build the root system with the phosphorus. You need to avoid weeds and disease with the potassium, but yet you want it to grow with the nitrogen. If you have a healthy, mature lawn, like the lawn I have here, I probably don't need that much phosphorus. I probably need more nitrogen, and I need more potassium to kind of prevent from diseases. So that's where you get the different blends.
Now you're going to be a nitrogen, throw the nitrogen, get my green grass guy. I see how it is. Okay, throw shade.
And you mentioned it before, but you always want to make sure you test your soil if possible. I've never done it. Because
You've never done it?
No, I haven't. I should have. Huh. If your pH is off, no matter how much fertilizer you put down, it might not do anything based off of if your pH is too high or too low. You have to kind of correct that pH level of your soil and your grass before you actually throw the correct fertilizer on.
Yeah, that's a good point. Did you have any other things that you really wanted to touch on there, Luke?
No, I don't think so. Just I would stay away from the big name brands when it comes to fertilizer. I would look at organic fertilizers because they do put a lot of crazy chemicals in the non-organic ones. So kind of keep that in mind. Those would be my two recommendations.
Okay, I saw a few other tips that I did just want to throw out there. Make sure that you reseed your lawn, especially if some spots are getting sparse. And this isn't even a you don't take care of your lawn kind of thing. This is just going to happen naturally over time. Make sure that you're preventing weeds before they come up as much as possible, like trying to control things like crabgrass. If you do find bigger leaves, like our beautiful dandelions that we have everywhere, a lot of them are really going to require manual digging. You're going to basically put a big dirt hole in your yard or wherever that is because those suckers are so deep with their roots that you won't get rid of them unless you're really digging down deep to get rid of them. And then, again, just like Luke said, test your soil and make sure to apply fertilizer. You can get a test for your soil for about $15 to do it yourself to figure out the acidity or how basic your lawn is. So $15, you can figure it out, and then that'll help you understand what kind of fertilizer you should be using. And then, as much as it pains me to say, you need to make sure that you rake things as well. If you are like me and you have too much grass everywhere because you wait 10 days perhaps to cut it, Luke, stop it, you're mean. You might have to rake some of that up because it is too much. And the same thing with leaves. I know Luke said that you need to mulch them. Ideally, that's the case. My old house had too many leaves, though, so mulching really wasn't an option. I could do that for some of them, but then I had to rake up the rest of them. Otherwise, you let them sit through the winter, and you know what you don't have to worry about the next year is grass because it's all dead. So definitely something to keep in mind. Any other tips you wanted to throw out there, Mr. Grass Guy?
Two tips. If you do end up with really high grass or lots of leaves, mulch or bag the grass and bag the leaves, and then take just a little bit of that bagged grass and a little bit of those bagged leaves and spread them on your lawn almost like natural fertilizer.
There you go.
So you don't have to throw it all over my hill, but you can just throw some of it over the hill. So make sure you do that.
Just imagine how your neighbors are going to look at you.
Oh, I know.
Like,
I can come
yeah,
right
spreading
now.
the grass you just cut. Yeah, that's too funny.
So that's all I had.
All right, perfect. Hopefully you all enjoyed this, and now you understand a little bit about the engineering behind the lawn care that you love to do so much. If you have any questions about taking care of your lawn, I will make sure to forward your email on to Luke because he apparently knows what he's doing, which I did not realize. But reach us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. And until next time.
See ya.